Okay. Aloha and welcome to the first of our summer speaker series hosted by the South Kohala Coastal Partnership. I'm Julia Rose. I'm with the Nature Conservancy and I coordinate the Coastal Partnership. And before I introduce our speaker today, I'd like to give a quick introduction to the South Kohala Coastal Partnership so you can get a glimpse of the big picture and how the work that Erica is sharing today fits within the context of our network. Some of you may have seen something like this before. This is sort of a condensed, as much information as I can fit in a short period of time here, so bear with me. So the region of South Kohala on Hawaii Island was designated as a priority area in 2010 through the Division of Aquatic Resources in the Hawaii Coral Reef Strategy. This means it was identified as an area with substantial and important coral reefs that were under threat from things like sediment, sewage, unsustainable fisheries, and climate change. And the state saw an opportunity to make progress on these very complicated and cross-cutting issues by building a network of partners to tackle things together in one geography. Which brings us to the model of the South Kohala Coastal Partnership. Some of you may be familiar with the watershed partnerships that exist across the state, where major landowners collaborate to preserve and protect forests and habitat across their boundaries. And so when we think of applying that model to the ocean, it doesn't quite work the same since we don't have the same ownership structure in the ocean. So instead of working primarily with landowners, we work with stakeholders. So entities like community groups, government agencies, nonprofits, organizations, businesses, researchers, resource managers, and also landowners. And we are united under a vision of a restored, healthy, abundant, resilient South Kohala coastal system, cared for and cherished by an island community guided by the values and traditions of South Kohala. And the network has gone through an iterative planning process to prioritize action that will address impacts to our coastal waters. In the most recent plan, we identified 6 key strategies to focus on. And these are resilient ocean policy to support community-based fisheries management, soil and watershed management to reduce erosion and sedimentation that's washing down onto our reefs, clean water management to address other pollution like sewage, fertilizer, and other things coming through the groundwater, county and community planning, working closely with our county planning department to provide science that could inform planning efforts, community connectivity and stewardship, which aims to preserve and enhance the community's connection to place and foster community stewardship and partnerships, and climate threat assessment and response, so we can continue to track the latest research and modeling of climate change and adjust our strategies as we need to. And the structure of the network is formatted so that each of these strategies has a team of partners dedicated to implementing them. And we communicate across the network in a couple of ways. This summer speaker series is one way to do that, because with a network of over 70 partners, it becomes extremely challenging to effectively communicate what every partner is working on simultaneously. So we are launching this virtual speaker series to continue connecting the work of our partners with the community and across the network, and focusing on one aspect of our partners' work per talk. So today, Erica Perez with the Coral Reef Alliance is here to share with us the work of Hawai'i Wai Ola, a community-based water quality monitoring program that began in South Kohala but is now island-wide. And before we get started, I did want to highlight a few housekeeping requests. If everyone could keep themselves on mute during the talk, we will open it up for discussion and questions afterwards. During the talk, feel free to put any burning questions in the chat and we'll try to get to those first. And then when we open it up for questions and discussion at the end, we would love to be able to see your lovely faces if you are able to use your camera. We will be recording the talk to share with those who missed it, so please be respectful of all participants. And with that, I'd like to introduce Erica Perez, who is a Senior Program Manager with the Coral Reef Alliance and coordinates the Hawai'i Wai Ola network.
Hi, thank you, Julia. Aloha, everybody. Thank you for joining us, potentially on your lunch break today. It's wonderful to have you. I am, as Julia said, the Senior Program Manager for Coral Reef Alliance. We are an international nonprofit organization, and I'm located here in Hawaii on Hawaii Island, and have been working locally with communities to secure Hawaii Island's water quality in multiple different ways. This project was, Hawai'i Wai Ola is a project that stemmed from work of the South Kohala Coastal Partnership researchers that initiated groundbreaking research to identify cesspool impact in Puako. And since then, it has grown to this amazing county-wide network with additional partners in governance, as well as nonprofits and community. So this is by no means a single person's job. It is a collective of about 10 other organizations that have hooied together in order to secure water quality health across Hawaii County. I will start by giving a quick apology in that this is not the presentation that I had intended to give today. My computer crashed last night, and so that's always super fun in this virtual world that we are living in. But I did have kind of now it is outdated presentation that will at least guide us through a conversation, hopefully. And I'm going to try to make this a little bit more engaging than just a PowerPoint. So I may ask some questions that if you folks could please put in your chat. This is going to be recorded, and so it will be great community input that we can integrate into our project and our program. So I will start with this PowerPoint presentation, but I am going to save some time for questions, and then also just to be able to talk story more about the growth of Hawai'i Wai Ola. You won't necessarily see that in this presentation. This is more about how it was founded and the potential that it could create within our communities to really help and guide management. So I am going to try to share my screen here. And I actually see some of our amazing partners as well as researchers on the line. So I'm giving you a shout out to the Kohala Center, Cindy Punahale, and UH researchers, Tracy Wegner, who also has been pivotal, a really great partner and pivotal in developing these efforts. This picture right here that you're looking at, just going to make sure everybody can see. Blair, do you mind giving me like an okay if you can see this? Awesome. All right. This photo is an aerial photo of Puako, Hawaii. It is on the west side of this island. It's a small shoreline community that has primarily cesspools and has been researched extensively to show connectivity from cesspool to reef. And the reason it is the front of this is that it kind of was the reason to develop this program, Hawai'i Wai Ola. And I think it's a good place to start. So the goal of Hawai'i Wai Ola is to improve Hawaii Island's water quality, improve Hawaii Island's coastal water quality through science, communication, collaboration, and to accelerate positive change. This project, Hawai'i Wai Ola, was created in Puako, but really utilized the lessons learned and plan that was actually stemmed from Maui, Hawai'i Wai Ola. And they're a citizen science hui that is based on Maui that led the charge of becoming a quality assured citizen science program and really paved the way for other organizations such like Coral and our partners, as well as our county, to be able to continue their effort here and grow a citizen science network that focused on water quality. So we really appreciate our folks over on Maui. And again, that project is called Hawai'i Wai Ola. So general threats to water quality, Julia kind of just gave a summary. Right now, Hawaii County really faces significant threats from wastewater and old infrastructure, such as cesspools and even old leaky septic tanks that are along the shoreline. And within this wastewater comes nutrients and bacteria, pharmaceutical drugs. There's many emerging contaminants of concern that are recognized from EPA. So wastewater can really carry a large mix of different threats that can harm coral reefs and degrade our water quality. Also, stormwater runoff in the form of sedimentation or agricultural runoff, residential runoff from lawns or other household harmful chemicals that are threatening our reefs. So these are just some of the threats that are impacting coastal water qualities here in Hawaii. And this is a very brief list of a very extensive problem. So this is kind of focused on what we're looking at today. And I just wanted to stem it down to these kind of few components. So with the wonderful work that TNC has done over the years, as well as UH scientists and UH Hilo researchers, looking at Pu'oko and identifying the connectivity from cesspool to reef, anywhere from a number of hours to up to 10 days, it can still be flowing. What we were able to do is work with the local scientists and work with the partners that were already actively involved in trying to identify a solution to cesspool impact. What we did is we ended up creating a monitoring plan in order to really quantify the benefit of upgrading cesspools. And within that plan came the thought of being able to build capacity and filling gaps within research with community engagement and community activity. Pu'oko is a well-connected community that is very active in trying to push forward many different projects, not just in the marine component, but even on land and creating fire breaks and such, if you know the area. So the goal was really to be able to start to engage community and have community interest in water quality and the health of water, and more specifically in Pu'oko, being able to track the impacts of cesspool conversion and the benefits that would come out of transitioning cesspools and outdated wastewater technologies to better technologies that could improve water quality. So this is the wonderful group of people that we worked with. This was in 2016, I believe, putting together the Pu'oko monitoring plan for assessing impacts of wastewater treatment upgrade. And within this plan, what we identified are these different components of measures of success. And within these different components, such as an improved in water quality, improvement of coral reef health, improvement of community pride, even property value increases with increased water quality and that shoreline security that reef protection offers. So within each of these different measures, there was a component of citizen science that was being called out as being able to fill and bridge those gaps between general research science and community-driven efforts. And that kind of stemmed Hawai'i Wai Ola is that we took this Huioka Wai Ola, we took Huioka Wai Ola's quality assurance project plan for their water quality sampling, and I'll go more into that plan and what that plan provides, as well as this measures plan to identify the benefits of upgrading wastewater technology. And we took this and we basically started to look at how we can engage and develop a citizen science network that not only served Pu'oko, but then also served other communities. And really, the goal was to be able to, again, fill research gaps, not only at academia level, but really to be able to fill research gaps also at the Department of Health level. So in order to kind of get citizen science data to the Department of Health, to a state level, we partnered with these folks and we started to do basic training and secure equipment, secure water quality parameters that we wanted to look at, and kind of start practicing these techniques as we were developing our quality assurance project plan, and practicing them in Pu'oko in order to grow it to a larger county-wide network. And so this is actually, if you look over here on this far left photo, this is us working with the folks over on Maui, Huioka Wai Ola, and we're really doing some just field training with them. And at that point, they had been active in sampling for about 1.5 years over on Maui and really had it dialed in. And you could tell when you went to go shadow them, because we shadowed them for 3 days, and all 3 of the teams across the board were just collected the same exact methodology, the same exact process and standard operating procedures. And it was just this very fluid kind of orchestra of collecting water quality data with these citizens that were able to do it to a standard that Department of Health would accept the data into their database. And so on this right, this is our team over here. We're over in Pu'oko collecting some samples. And this was the first year that the project really started to launch and become active within a community. And that first community was Pu'oko. So if you were to look at kind of volunteer monitoring, there's many different levels of volunteer monitoring. There's volunteer monitoring for citizen science networks that are more at this education and awareness. It's really to bring people together. It's really to build awareness to potential threats that are affecting the environment, affecting the water, affecting reefs, and you can use it as a tool to engage. I know the folks over at Kohala Center, Kahaluu Bay, have an amazing education component around citizen science that they have been actively sampling for roughly 10 years at Kahaluu Bay. And they're, I think, just a really prime example of an excellent education and awareness citizen science network that really took that outreach and education to an excellent level by making folks locally as well as nationally aware of the threats that were affecting their bay. And then there's also these other types of monitoring groups and citizen science networks that could be more of an assessing or kind of to flag impairments that are being seen along different shorelines. And that could be kind of a flag to a university system that then would be able to go out and take quality control data and has a strict methodology under their collection system and as well as their analysis of the samples, and then be able to kind of take that data into more of an academia or kind of a step above just education and awareness and outreach. And then the last kind of continuum, if you could think of it, is the legal and regulatory, is being able to use citizen science to influence regulation and influence management. And that was really where our partners, as well as the community members that we spoke with, found a need in Hawaii County, is the regulatory kind of gap of information that we don't have to be able to guide good regulations within Hawaii County to be able to secure the health of water quality across Hawaii Island. And with each one of these steps, you can imagine that there's going to be an increased level of time, an increased level of rigor around science and protocols and standard operating procedures. And that's all comes together in what's called a quality assurance project plan. And as we reach this continuum of like this legal filling the gap, being able to provide data to managers, comes a larger expense, because you're going to be following Department of Health, or you're going to be following a larger umbrella of criteria and quality control to be able to prove and showcase that your data is actually to the rigor that Department of Health wants to see, as well as making sure that the data that they're integrating into their system is sound data. And so we're on this end of the spectrum, which is the legal and regulatory end of really filling data gaps for the Department of Health when it comes to water impairment. So within our quality assurance project plan that is in the process of being reviewed and approved from the Department of Health, we have many different parameters. These are the parameters that are actively kind of in place right now. And the plan is to be able to look at other parameters as we continue to grow and secure funding, and as well as secure volunteers, which I'm going to get to in a little bit. But right now, we've been sampling Pu'ako now going on 2 years and have quite a bit of data for Pu'ako. The first year, I will say, is us learning the proper techniques that are under our quality assurance plan. And the second year, we were able to grow and actually bring on the Hilo region as well as the Kona region. So we are now sampling in 3 different regions across Hawaii Island, and we're looking at water temperature. We look at salinity. We looked at dissolved oxygen, pH, and turbidity. And these are basic in situ parameters. Along with these, we're looking at total dissolved nutrients, such as nitrogen and phosphorus, as well as Enterococcus, which is a bacteria indicator that can indicate if human waste is in waterways. There is a lot of debate whether that is the best indicator to use for bacteria here in Hawaii. We see a lot of just checking my time. We see a lot of Enterococcus just alive in soil samples here. So there's some discussion of whether EPA could maybe change that metrics to maybe a better suited metrics for Hawaii being an island and high bacteria in our soil. So those are the parameters. And within choosing sites, we have over about 200 sites that are identified as potential sites for this, for Hawai'i Wai Ola sampling. And in order to kind of get on that site list, what we did is we went through these criteria that are outlined because the premise is really to create positive change. So we want to work in areas that are accessible and they're safe for our volunteers. We want to work in areas that have public access and that we have permission in order to access, in order to sample. All samples are taken in really well mixed areas. So we don't want like tide pool area to just be sampling right in kind of an uncirculated area. We have included also sites that are on the Clean Water Branch Beach Act monitoring sites. They have 3 different tiers that they monitor, and we can fill data gaps in the last 2 tiers of their sampling, just because we can help by adding capacity to their team and making sure that we have trained volunteers under a quality assured program in order to go out and collect samples. And they're really, along with these parameters, we also intentionally worked with areas that had community activism already. So the areas that we're working in and that we're currently sampling in Hilo had an active community that was, you know, wanting to water quality sample. And with our partners through Surfrider Foundation, we were able to launch that community effort and help them get underway. And then likewise in Kona, we have, as I was saying, the Kahala'upe Education Center that is founded and managed by the Kohala Center, has a very active community, also actually ironically looking at cesspool impacts and many other impacts from user impacts and different types of monitoring that they do at Kahala'u. So the immediate locations and regions that we activated were regions that had community capacity already there. They were actively wanting to collect data. They were actively wanting to identify different threats, as well as create positive change, which, as you remember, is definitely a mission for Hawai'i Wai Ola. So these are just some sample sites. As I said, this presentation is definitely outdated. I would have loved to have shown you a map of all of our sample sites, of those 200 sites that are included within our project. Unfortunately, I can't. But right now, this is the South Kohala region, and these are 4 of the 6 sample site locations that we sample monthly in Puako. And this is just some preliminary data. This is during our training. And so we took the data that was gathered during training, and we made use of it to be able to advocate to advance the program beyond Puako and make sure that we were able to grow it to a county-wide initiative. So these are very simple infographics that right now don't have, I think that they're about 8 months of data. And this is the total dissolved nitrogen and total dissolved phosphorus. And the reason that we look at these are big indicators of nutrients when you're concerned about wastewater. And so we have the threshold right here in red for nitrogen, which is 100, and that's a DOH, a Department of Health metrics. And so you can see that there definitely are. So Paniao has also been identified by UH Hilo researchers as a hot spot for wastewater impacts. And our research and what we have gathered from our initial data, it definitely does have peaks. As you can see, it's one of the kind of most, one of the sites that has most high dissolved nitrogen over this sampling period. And then total dissolved phosphorus, you also see this red mean for Department of Health level for phosphorus. And you can see that we actually, none of our sites reached that level. Our wonderful labs that are listed in our quality assurance project plan that we work with are UH Analytical Lab, and they actually went through the rigorous process of becoming a quality assured lab along with this program, and really both of these labs have stepped up to the plate so much in regards to technical capacity and technical knowledge. NELHA also is a trusted lab for this program, and they're out of Kona, and they manage our Kona samples, and Hilo helps us manage our Hilo samples. So as I said, this is by no means a one organization effort. This effort is carried pretty significantly through about 10 other partners. This is the bacteria. So this is the Enterococcus indicator that I was speaking about before. And you can see the thresholds that are here. This red threshold is the statistical threshold value for Department of Health Clean Water Branch. And then this value, this threshold right here in orange is the Hawaii single maximum. So that's as if you collected one sample and your one sample was over 104 CFUs. That's just the unit of how much bacteria is within that sample. Then they would be putting a sign out in front of that beach saying that folks shouldn't go into it because it has a dangerous level of bacteria. This statistical threshold is an actual mean of 5 different samples. So if you were to collect 5 samples in a row and that mean of those 5 samples was above 130, then they would go in and they would be putting up the sign saying that the beach was not accessible, or folks should stay out of it due to high bacteria numbers. And as you can see, Paniao here in purple is definitely reaching both of those thresholds at different times. This other one is the Wailea Bay, just north of Puako. And that's the north site of our Wailea Bay sample. And so that's as if you're familiar with the area, just if you walk straight down from the parking lot, right there is that site. So this gives a good example of the data that we can collect from this hui, and this is a way that it can be utilized both for community efforts and for community to have access to quality assured data so they can influence resource managers. And then at the end of the day, the goal is to be able to take all of this data and have it integrated into the Department of Health biannual report on water quality. These are the in situ parameters. This is the salinity. Salinity has an effect on these other parameters. When you look at groundwater seeps and you see, I'll just make this correlation. So Paniao, again, is this purple, and we'll just take a close look at that. So salinity, when salinity starts to go down below 15, the average salinity for ocean water should be up here about 35 parts per thousand. So when you're looking at Paniao, for example, that has a salinity under 15 many days, right? Many sample days, you're looking at a large freshwater input, and that large freshwater input is bringing in, specifically here in Puako, a lot of wastewater from cesspools. And so it's just kind of reiterating the things that we have found from our partners at University of Hawaii Hilo and the Nature Conservancy, and really just validating that groundwater seeps are bringing in high nutrients as well as bacteria to Puako. This is our super cool lab setup when we're out in the field. This is how we sample. We go out and we collect samples and we run them on the back of our truck and store the bacteria and nutrient samples in ice chests and run them to the labs in an appropriate amount of time and make sure all of this equipment is stored properly and cared for and calibrated properly. Sometimes we have days. These are our amazing regional coordinators located here in Hilo. This is Elle Young and her son Corbin Young, who works alongside of her every single month in order to collect samples. Some days we have signs that are in front of us already that are indicating some kind of contamination of water. This is a Department of Health water sign that was placed due to a sewer break here in Hilo. This is Reed's Bay. And so we went out and we actually did sample. I think this was the third day of that water main break, that sewage main break. And that sample, if I recall, actually came back below the threshold. So we were really surprised, but it was a good thing that Department of Health still had the sign up just in case. And this is just us again, sampling out of our vehicles. And this is what it looks like to be in the field. So where we were intending to go last year before COVID hit was growth. And we were going to be taking our amazing regional coordinators, Elle Young and Kathleen Clark over at Kohala Center at Kahaluu Bay. And we were all excited to begin voluntary training and launch a larger network within all three of these regions. And COVID hit. And as it derailed, I'm sure everybody in life and in work, we had to pivot and we had to try to figure out how to keep the project going and how to keep it moving forward without volunteers, which is kind of a crazy concept because we're a volunteer network. And the whole premise of Hawai'i Wai Ola is making sure that citizen science is happening and that it's benefiting these communities and that communities are able to make use of this data that we're going out and collecting. And so while we weren't able to grow last year, what we were able to do is grow in the sense of our regions. And we now have very trained and capable regional coordinators in all three regions. We have been sampling over the course of COVID. So we were able to capture a really unique data set that shows minimal use, and that data is actually being analyzed. I don't unfortunately have the ability to share it here on this Zoom, but the fact that we were able to keep sampling under government regulations of shutdown, beach closures, everything that we all have just lived through this past year really shows dedication from all of our partners. And those that are on the call, a huge mahalo to all of you. Because of you, we've been able to keep this work going. And now we really are very excited to say that we will be launching volunteer training for Hawai'i Wai Ola in the coming months this summer. We're wrapping up, or we're starting, but then also wrapping up getting our virtual training modules developed, and we'll be sharing those on our Facebook page as well as on our website, hawai'iwaiola.com. And I really look forward to hopefully meeting folks that are also interested in water quality and citizen science networking, and being able to train some folks within these regions, as well as potentially expanding to other regions across the island, if those that are interested, to start launching sampling in other regions. But I am super excited to have made it through COVID and made it through kind of this isolation time. And now we can come out of it with an amazing data set that has minimal tourism and minimal even local use, and then kind of show and compare it to future data that has us be more open back up to tourism and basic kind of use that we're used to seeing along our shoreline. So this is a wonderful quote that's actually out of the Pu'uko Measures Plan. More science without bold action will likely continue to tell the tale of decline at Pu'uko. I don't believe that that's just for Pu'uko. I think it's for many regions. We don't like to do science for science sake. We want to create positive change. We want to create positive action. And I really look forward to working and continuing to work with our partners and really engaging community this coming year and this summer in learning to become a citizen science. And I'm going to that's it. I'm going to stop. These are a few of our amazing partners, and there are several that are missing. But just know that there are a lot of people that have helped along the way to make Hawai'i Wai Ola possible. I'm going to stop sharing. And
Thanks,
now,
Erica.
yeah, no problem.
So I'd like to open it up for questions. And I see, thank you, Darcy from Department of Health, for answering the question in the chat. The first question was, does Department of Health consider cesspool and septic seeps to be point or non-point sources of pollution? And we have Darcy with us from the Department of Health, so she answered that question already. Can we start with any other questions? If folks want to unmute and turn your cameras on, we can have a conversation and pretend that we're face to face.
Absolutely.
So I have a question. Thank you, Erica, for that presentation. Miss seeing you around.
Likewise.
And thanks for putting that together last minute after your computer crashed. I know that could be not as fun as you would like.
Not as pretty, that's for sure.
if we have time, is there like a quick summing up update of the plan of dealing with the wastewater problem at Pu'uko? Has that advanced into something's officially gonna, a wastewater treatment's gonna be built, or is there?
Yeah, that's a great question. We still are working with the community and advancing that work through state and county administrations. So it is underway. The last kind of biggest update was that the county has encumbered the $1.8 million of state CIP funds to be able to move a solution forward in Pu'uko. So this data, this baseline data that we collect from Pu'uko, and with how extensive that whole shoreline is really studied, we have a great baseline to show the benefits of transition.
Awesome. And do you guys have enough funding to go through with your plan, or?
No, I mean funding. You mean for treatment?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be something that is still needed. Capital improvement funds are still needed for that effort. Yeah.
I'll check my piggy bank and see if
please do. We accept all forms of funding, even from piggy banks.
A big shout out to our rep, David Tarnas, and I know Zoe Sims is here from his office. Hi, Zoe.
I would love if, I know a lot of these people that are on the call. If you folks don't have questions, but if you have water quality concerns that weren't touched upon, I would love to know your water quality concerns within your region. If you're looking at other impacts outside of wastewater and sedimentation and those that come with those, or runoff, those that come with those impacts, I would love to also hear from you folks of what you're concerned about.
I see Arik, do you have your hand raised?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Hi, Erica. Good to see you.
Aloha, Arik.
Aloha in the celebrity squares.
You're right.
So I have a question regarding the water quality at Paniao and the salinity level.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just wondering if there's a breakdown within that can tell us how much of that water is basically just groundwater seeping into the ocean versus or compared to what is actually, pollutant or polluted waters.
So are you I'm going to try to answer your question. And if I don't hit on it, let me know. I'm going to come back to you and see if I answered it. So I think that what you're asking is how much of the Paniao samples are actual groundwater influenced, or rather than just mixing. So Paniao, and I know Tracy Wegner's on the call too, or she was, and so I don't see her anymore. She got out of here without answering a question. The Paniao site has heavy groundwater infiltration right there. So a lot of our samples are significantly below an average ocean or even shoreline water quality salinity. So what the research and what the data is showing is that that input is a groundwater source input from the shoreline that is carrying these contaminants with them into the coastal area right there. So, oh, I see her. So it does have, and they've done dye tracer studies as well that has shown this direct connection from hydrologically from the shoreline directly to the water. And that is why you can really look at a correlation of low salinity, which indicates the high groundwater input, and then high nutrients or bacteria level that would then kind of tie together with the shoreline cesspools. But we have an excellent researcher in our presence that can even answer that question more than what I just provided, if Tracy would like to.
Sure. So at Paniao, there's a tremendous amount of groundwater. In some places, it looks like a hose coming out of the rocks. And that groundwater is often warm, which is not the norm along that shoreline. We've done dye tracer tests at different parts along the Pu'uko shoreline. And we did do ones near the Paniao and saw dye emerging in the springs on the scale of hours to days. Steve Colbert, my colleague, he was in charge of those dye tracer tests. And I think how he describes it is the amount of sewage in the water is like you sitting in the bathtub and urinating. So it's not like 50% seawater, 50% sewage, thank goodness. But it is present. And oftentimes the bacteria concentrations we measure at Pu'uko are really high. The way we sample might be different than the way Erica does. We would go at low tide, early morning to try to get the highest concentrations we could find, because we were really trying to pinpoint where we thought sewage was entering into the ocean.
So just a follow-up question.
Paniao is one of the hot spots for Pu'uko.
So just a follow-up question. So what will we tell the surfers and the swimmers and residents there about their water in terms of going swimming there, or going surfing? What's the risk?
I think that's a great question. I mean, we've been actively engaging that community and broader stakeholders down in South Kohala for some time now. One, to just share not only Hawai'i Wai Ola data and our updates, but also to share the Nature Conservancy's data, Hilo's data. There's been many researchers that have gone through Pu'uko to be able to link the cesspools or link sewage and water quality, or even link it to coral reef health. So there's another Dr. Courtney Couch, who's a coral biologist. She has linked it, more specifically to coral reef health and diseases. So what we've been doing is doing a lot of, as much as we can, a lot of outreach and education, and starting Hawai'i Wai Ola, because now that we have this quality assured data, what we can do is at the next biannual report on Hawaii's water quality is that we'll take this quality assured data and we'll be able to share it with Department of Health. And then they're going to be able to see and integrate that data into their decision-making process. And it's also there for the community themselves to use as a tool for other immediate action and change. So if you have other ideas, I would love to hear them.
My question was, is it safe to go swimming there and go surfing?
I get this question a lot, and what I always say is look at the signs and just really take precaution. Go. It's not always high at Paniao. It's not every single day, and it's not consistently. It does happen a lot, like what Tracy was saying, is during low tide, it's in a higher concentration. Just shower, wash yourself, make sure you're clean, don't go in with cuts and scrapes, and take good ocean practices, and stay up to date with what's happening. There's lots of researchers and excellent information in that area, as long as other areas. So just be active, I guess.
Great, thank you. I have one more question. Sorry, I don't want to dominate, but
Zoe has her hand up. Can we?
Okay, sure.
Circle back?
Nope, that's fine.
Go ahead, Zoe.
And thank you, Erica, for a great presentation and for all of the important work you're doing. And thanks for the shout out also, Julia. So I wanted to follow up, Erica, you'd mentioned the quality assurance project plan is now being reviewed at DOH. And I just wanted to see if you could tell us a little bit more about your collaboration with DOH and where we are in that process and what that looks like going forward.
Yeah, so Department of Health, our quality assurance project plan is designed around the Department of Health Beach Act. So the Beach Act, if those aren't familiar with it, is an act by EPA that essentially is created to make notices like this, that beach access is safe and that the water quality is good and you're free and clear of any major contaminants. And so the Beach Act looks at the indicators along the same line, indicators that we're looking at. And our quality assurance project plan went in to Department of Health December of this last year. And we're working with the Clean Water Branch in order to get that finalized. I don't necessarily have an update beyond that. We anticipate it going very smoothly. Everything's gotten delayed for COVID. I'm just going to say that, like in every single aspect of all of our projects, everything, as I'm sure you know, Zoe, is super delayed because of COVID. So while we were hoping that it would already be done, we're being patient. We continue to engage Department of Health, not only from Oahu at the state. We also engage the Department of Health samplers that are here on island in Hawaii County that sample also every single month for the Beach Act, but for Hawaii Department of Health. So we work pretty closely. Like the goal was to build a bridge for citizens to Department of Health and really be able to kind of be in the same line, in the same arena with having quality assured data and being able to advocate for change that they would like to see in their area. So we have had a great working relationship with Department of Health and have really enjoyed being able to work alongside of them to help community.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
And thanks, Darcy, for being on the line from DOH today as well.
Yes.
All right, Arik, you had one more question?
Yes, thank you. Erica, the question is, you mentioned about pharmaceuticals.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have a breakdown in terms of the kinds of pharmaceuticals, that are going into the water?
Yeah, so that is one of EPA's emerging contaminants of concern. Right now, we're not looking at pharmaceuticals, so we have no breakdown. I know that some pharmaceuticals that they have looked at in other regions of the nation are like the opioids. They've looked at different types of endocrine disruptors like birth control, all the way to the sunscreen. Like Hawaii just passed a sunscreen ban, that would be considered kind of classified as a pharmaceutical with those active components and ingredients in that. So EPA is currently looking at a list of different types of pharmaceuticals and trying to identify what the best way of kind of incorporating these emerging contaminants that folks are concerned about, as well as EPA, and figuring out the best way to research them and to collect useful data on it. That's a great question, though.
Yeah, so there's no correlation between how it affects particular corals, or
that's great. Not to my knowledge. I know that there's been Dr. Craig Downs did pretty extensive research on the endocrine disruptors that are found in sunscreen and the impacts of those on corals. And some of the research, I just want to be aware of the time, some of the research out of there, it affects reproduction, it affects recoup over like their recoup time after threats or after an impact. So I know it can impact quite a bit from his research, it seems, the coral reef health. But outside of that, I really don't know.
Thanks.
I would also mention, I mean, a lot of the studies that are being done are sort of going compound by compound. And there are a heck of a lot of different compounds to look at. And what I like to think of it as, if we can focus on the vectors so that the whole soup of unknown compounds, more of which are being invented all the time, it has reduced access to the coastal waters. That's sort of so things like eventually installing a sewage treatment plant in Puako. Maybe we don't have to pursue every sort of end of what are these individual compounds, how do they interact with corals. Maybe we can control them as a whole or help to reduce them.
Yeah, thank you, Julia.
We could maybe take one last question.
Julia, this
Auntie
is
Cindy. Yeah.
just have a comment from what you and Erica were talking about. I think as Eric talked about pharmaceuticals and because we work so much with the sunscreen concerns that, and maybe and talking to people like Stephen Holmes, is that when we look at upgrading wastewater treatment plants, we should be looking at membranes, bioreactors that really can help support the reduction of these pharmaceuticals. Because if we're not really looking at those areas, then as we upgrade, we will then have another problem that we're leaving for our children. So if we're upgrading, we should be looking at the technology today that can efficiently manage those drugs. Just my 2 cents.
Hi, aloha, Auntie Cindy. Yeah, thank you for that. Auntie Cindy, folks, they have lots of concerns down at Kahaluu with not cesspools, well, cesspools, but also wastewater impacts down there in Kona. And so her and her team have been on it for a long time as well. The technology component of addressing all of these concerns, I think, is challenging in the sense that some of these technologies don't address any of these impacts or any of these types of threats, and making sure that we at least are managing what's left over after treatment as effectively and efficiently and keeping it out of our waterways I would absolutely agree with Auntie Cindy to just like not just look at the bacteria and not just look at, you know, the basic indicators, but definitely do what we can as technologies are advancing, and we know that these threats are continuing to be developed and go into our oceans and waterways.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Erica, do you want to put your email in the chat so people can follow up with you? And I can drop mine in as well.
And we have a volunteer form. On our website, we have a volunteer form as well as a subscribe. So if you have any interest in volunteering or helping out in any kind of way, we have a number of different positions and needs for the project, and would be more than excited to have folks start to join.
Great. Well, thanks for joining us for the first of our summer speaker series. Our next talk will be in July. We're doing these on the second Wednesday of the month. And we will be talking about sediment next time.
There you go.
All right. Aloha, everyone.
Mahalo, Julia and Erica. Aloha.